when I leave Alabama, that's all they tell you, not to talk back. So when I leave, I intend to speak my piece. I left there to speak my piece.
It's been 25 years since Eddie Kendricks, the famous singer from The Temptations, passed away. But recently, something shocking happened. His children have come forward to confirm some terrible rumors about their father's life. What are these rumors? Why have they decided to talk about them now? Let's explore the truth behind these awful stories and learn more about Eddie Kendricks' legacy. What really happened?
And I'm from Alabama, and he's from Michigan, and maybe people out of Michigan, Alabama, are not supposed to talk back.
Eddie Kendricks' early life was the beginning of a career that would take him to great heights, but also bring him through some tough times. His voice, especially his falsetto, became one of the most recognizable sounds of the famous group, The Temptations. Born Edward James Kendrick on December 17, 1939, in Birmingham, Alabama. He grew up in a difficult time when racism was widespread in the South. This was a time when black people faced many unfair challenges.
When I leave, I intend to speak my piece.
Music for Kendrick and many others was a way to escape from the harsh realities of life. It gave him a way to express himself and gave him hope. From a young age, Kendrick had a deep love for music. He quickly started to develop his singing skills, especially his unique falsetto voice. This high-pitched sound became a key part of the Temptations' identity. His falsetto made their songs stand out, and it was something that fans would always recognize. It was one of the things that made the group special.
Well, I think Eddie was probably the first guy to give falsetto some real class.
Kendrick's love for music started in his community, where he was surrounded by talented people. In Birmingham, he started singing in church and school groups, which helped him learn how to use his voice. His natural talent soon caught the attention of others, and he began performing in local groups. By the time he was a young man, he was ready to join the Temptations, a group that would soon become famous around the world. The Temptations, known for their smooth harmonies and unforgettable songs, became one of the biggest names in Motown music. But despite the success, there were also problems within the group. Tensions would often arise, both between the members and in their personal lives. Kendrick, like many of his bandmates, faced challenges that made his career harder than it looked from the outside. The group's rise to fame brought both joy and pressure, and the stress of constant touring, along with internal conflicts, began to take its toll.
Barry Gordy is a man I do not know. I only met him about 3 times. I really don't know anything about him. I just know he didn't particularly care for me.
Kendrick's love for music started early, and his roots were in gospel and R&B, styles deeply connected to the African-American experience. These influences shaped his journey as an artist. Things took a big turn for Kendrick when he met Paul Williams, another singer who shared similar dreams. They both had a passion for music, and their voices blended perfectly, which led to a partnership. This partnership helped form one of the greatest groups in music history, The Temptations. At first, the group was called the Elgins, and it was a time of trying out new ideas and finding their style. Kendrick, along with Paul Williams, Otis Williams, Melvin Franklin, and Elbridge Bryant, made up the original members. Each one brought something special to the group, and they all came from different backgrounds. Together, they worked hard to make it from the streets of Detroit to the top of the music world.
The Temptations could have come from central casting. You had 5 great-looking, 6-foot or more singers.
The early days weren't easy, though. Many African-American artists at the time faced challenges, including a music industry that wasn't always welcoming. Kendrick's role in the group was key. His high, smooth falsetto voice became a signature sound for the Temptations, helping to shape their identity. Their early music was part of the Motown sound, a style that became popular in the 1960s.
Barry told me, he said, I want you to work with the Temptations and try to get some hits on them. I was the first producer at Motown to start to work with them.
But success didn't come right away. The Temptations had to deal with lineup changes and struggles to find their true musical style. Kendrick's ideas sometimes clashed with Motown's rules, causing tension. Despite these issues, the group kept going. They had big hits like The Way You Do the Things You Do and My Girl, which showed off Kendrick's talent and the group's ability to harmonize. These early songs helped build their legacy, and proved that their hard work and passion would make them one of the most famous groups in music history.
They dressed better than anybody else. They danced better than anybody else. They sung better than anybody else. So there you have it, the Temptations.
The Temptations' rise to the top of Motown was a mix of great success and personal struggles. Their journey to becoming one of the greatest music groups in history wasn't always smooth. As they worked hard to make a name for themselves, issues began to surface within the group, especially involving Eddie Kendricks. In the early days, the Temptations were riding high on their first big hits. Songs like Ain't Too Proud to Beg and Beauty Is Only Skin Deep became classics. These tracks showed off the group's soulful sound and Kendrick's beautiful voice. Their music wasn't just popular with black audiences, it touched people from all backgrounds, crossing racial and geographical lines. However, with success came new challenges. Eddie Kendricks was a quiet and creative person. He loved traditional soul and R&B music. But as the group's music started to lean toward more commercial styles, he didn't always agree. Other members of the group had stronger, more dominant personalities, and this caused tension. The stress of constant touring and staying on top of the charts added more pressure, making things even harder.
I just know he didn't particularly care for me. And I guess he had his reasons. I'm just not the kind of guy that, well, Brown knows. I say what I think I should say.
To make matters worse, the group's lineup began to change during this time, which added more uncertainty. Kendricks also had trouble with Motown's boss, Berry Gordy. Gordy wanted the group to focus on making big hits, but Kendricks cared more about keeping their music true to its soulful roots. This led to arguments about the group's direction and management. Eddie was quiet and thoughtful, which made it harder for him to stand up to the stronger personalities, like David Ruffin. David was bold and confident, often taking center stage, which sometimes led to tension between the two. These personal conflicts made it harder for the group to work together. The group's busy schedule added even more stress. They were constantly touring, recording, and trying to stay on top as one of Motown's best acts. Eddie started to feel like his ideas weren't being respected. Motown's management often focused on what would sell, not what Eddie thought was best for the group's artistic style. This made him feel left out and frustrated. Even though Eddie felt unhappy, he still worked hard and gave his best to the group's music. But the growing divide between him and the rest of the group marked a turning point. His desire for creative control and his love for R&B would eventually lead him to leave the group and go solo. This decision wasn't easy for him and brought many challenges along the way. Going solo was a big step for Kendricks. He was used to being part of a group where they shared the spotlight. Now he had to prove himself as a solo artist in a very competitive music industry. At first, his solo career had ups and downs. Songs like Keep On Truckin' and Boogie Down became big hits, showing he could adapt to the changing music scene. However, he found it hard to keep that level of success consistently. When Eddie Kendricks left the Temptations in the early 1970s, things didn't take off for him right away. For 2 long years, none of his songs made it into the top 40. Meanwhile, the Temptations kept delivering hit after hit, many of them produced by Norman Whitfield. One of their songs, Superstar, Remember How You Got Where You Are, even took a jab at Eddie and another former Temptation, David Ruffin. Eddie kept pushing forward though, and in 1972, he released an album called People Will Hold On. While it wasn't a huge commercial success, it made a big impact on the disco scene in New York City. DJs in downtown clubs loved one track in particular, Girl, You Need a Change of Mind. The song, which lasted a whopping 8 minutes, became a favorite at places like David Mancuso's Loft. Even though it only made it to number 13 on the soul chart, it paved the way for Eddie in the world of dance music. Years later, R&B singer D'Angelo even remade the song for the Get on the Bus movie soundtrack. In 1973, Eddie finally hit it big. His song Keep On Truckin' shot to number 1 on the US pop charts. He became the only member of the Temptations to score a solo number 1 hit. The song also made waves in the UK, reaching number 18. It sold over 1 million copies and earned Eddie a gold disc. This was a turning point in his career, and it showed he could make it on his own. Eddie didn't stop there. In 1974, he released Boogie Down, which hit #2 in the US and number 39 in the UK. This song also sold over 1 million copies. Other hits followed, including Son of Sagittarius, Shoeshine Boy, and He's a Friend. One of Eddie's lesser-known songs, Intimate Friends, became important in a different way. Many artists sampled it in their music. Alicia Keys used it in her song Unbreakable. The rapper Common sampled it for Camera, A Penny for My Thoughts. It also appeared in Sweet Sable's Old Time's Sake from the movie Above the Rim. Even Erykah Badu used it for her track Fall in Love, Your Funeral. Eddie's music reached across generations. His song My People Hold On inspired Erykah Badu again in her album New America Part 1.
My people.
It's clear that Eddie's work had a lasting impact on music, even though his solo career started off slow. Exasperated by a lack of creative and financial control, Kendricks left Motown in 1978. He moved first to Arista Records and later to Atlantic Records. By this time, his popularity had waned, and he was also gradually losing his upper range as a result of chain smoking. Eddie Kendricks and David Ruffin joined the Temptations again for a special reunion tour. Fans were excited to see the group back together, now with 7 members. They also recorded a new album during this time and had a hit song called Standing on the Top, written and produced by Rick James. Kendrick sang a few lines in the song, but didn't lead any other tracks on the album. Dennis Edwards, another member of the Temptations, later said in an interview that Kendrick struggled to hit high notes while recording the album. Kendricks went to a doctor who found a tiny spot of cancer on one of his lungs. Despite the diagnosis, Kendricks refused chemotherapy because he feared it would make him lose his hair. In the 1980s, Kendricks dropped the S from his name, becoming Eddie Kendrick. One night, Ruffin went to watch Kendrick perform at a nightclub. Kendrick noticed Ruffin in the audience, invited him on stage, and they performed together. This meeting inspired them to tour as a duo and release an album together in 1988. Before that, in 1985, Kendricks and Ruffin worked with Hall & Oates. They performed on the Live at the Apollo album, sang at the Live Aid concert in Philadelphia, and appeared at the MTV Video Music Awards in New York. Hall & Oates were big fans of Kendricks, Ruffin, and the Temptations, calling them a major influence. Ruffin and Kendricks even had a hit medley with Hall & Oates, blending The Way You Do the Things You Do and My Girl. The single reached the Billboard Hot 100 and earned them a Grammy nomination. In 1989, the Temptations were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This included Kendricks, Ruffin, and other members of the group. During the event, Kendricks and Ruffin planned to tour and record with Dennis Edwards under the name Ruffin Kendrick Edwards, former leads of the Temptations. Sadly, these plans ended in 1991. Ruffin passed away from a drug overdose, and Kendricks was diagnosed with lung cancer.
Of age, alcohol and all types of drugs were just a part of the David Ruffin.
Even after surgery in 1991, Kendricks kept performing. He continued touring until the summer of 1992, showing his love for music and fans, despite his health struggles. This reunion period remains a memorable chapter in the history of the Temptations and their incredible legacy. Beyond music, Eddie focused on his family and personal life. Fame had its challenges, but Eddie valued his relationships with loved ones. He wanted to leave behind more than just a musical legacy. He wanted to be remembered as a caring father and a loyal friend. When Eddie's health worsened, tributes poured in. The music world celebrated his voice, his artistry, and his contributions to Motown. His battle with lung cancer also brought attention to the health risks musicians often face. Sadly, by the 1990s, Eddie's health had really declined. He had one of his lungs removed due to smoking-related problems. Eddie, who had smoked for over 30 years, used his experience to warn young people not to make the same mistake. Sadly, on October 5th, 1992, at just 52 years old, Eddie Kendricks passed away from lung cancer in a hospital in his hometown of Birmingham, Alabama. He was survived by his 3 children, Paris, Aka, and Paul Kendricks, named after Paul Williams. A funeral service was held at the First Baptist Church in Ensley, Alabama. He was buried in Elmwood Cemetery, Birmingham. Friends and fans paid tribute to Kendricks at 4 concerts, held at the Strand in Los Angeles on October 16th and October 17th, 1992. Performers including Bobby Womack, Chaka Khan, Mary Wilson, and Vesta Willems sang Temptation songs, as well as some of their own. Looking back on his legacy, Esther Edwards, the Temptations' first manager, spoke about Eddie's unique voice. She said, "Eddie just had that great tenor voice that was so captivating. He had such admirers, men and women, but the ladies really loved Eddie and his style. He just had a sweet, melodious, captivating, tender sound." Eddie Kendrick's voice and style left a lasting mark on the music world, and he will always be remembered for his amazing talent.
Well, I think Eddie was probably the first guy to give falsetto some real class.
Kendricks was nominated for 4 Grammy Awards, winning 1 for Cloud 9 with the Temptations in 1969. The Temptations received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2013. In 1998, NBC aired The Temptations, a 4-hour television miniseries based upon an autobiographical book by Otis Williams. Kendricks was portrayed by actor Taryn Brooks. On October 16, 1999, Eddie Kendrick Memorial Park, located on the corner of 18th Street and 4th Avenue North, was dedicated to Birmingham native Eddie Kendricks of the Temptations. The park uses Kendrick's family name without the S, which was added early in his career. The memorial features a bronze sculpture of Kendricks by local artist Ron McDowell, as well as sculptures of the other Temptations, set into a granite wall. Inscribed on the granite are the names of Temptations' hit songs. Recorded music can be heard throughout the park, featuring songs by Kendricks and the Temptations.
You changed my life.
In 1989, Kendricks was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Temptations. Rapper Kendrick Lamar was named by his mother after Kendricks. In 2019, Kendricks was inducted as a solo artist into the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame. The Temptations didn't just give us great songs, they gave us stories of hope, resilience, and the power of working together. They became a symbol of Motown, representing a golden era of music that touched millions of lives. Behind the fame, though, the group faced personal challenges, including health issues and the loss of several members. The deaths of former members like Paul Williams and David Ruffin were heartbreaking for both the group and their fans. Paul Williams was the only member of the Temptations who abstained from alcohol consumption. That's why it's tragically ironic that Williams descended into alcoholism as the Temps began to enjoy massive success as one of Motown's most popular acts.
And when you are a group, you have to move and think as one unit. You cannot have 5 guys going, 5 different directions.
According to Otis Williams in Temptations, Paul's drinking problem might have started when he entered an affair with a woman named Winnie Brown, who worked as the Supremes' hairstylist. Paul had married young and had 5 children, Otis wrote. He was devoted to his family, but torn between them and Winnie. Before too long, Paul, who never took anything stronger than milk, started drinking. It was difficult watching his bandmate develop a drinking problem almost out of nowhere. To see a guy come from drinking milk to drinking, sometimes 2 to 3/5 of Courvoisier a day, that was kind of hard to take, he said. Ultimately, Williams' health, as well as the quality of his performances, continued to decline, and he refused to see a doctor.
Long before I knew.
Williams was found dead inside a car parked in an alley, having just left the new house of his then-girlfriend after an argument. A gun was found near his body. His death was ruled an apparent suicide. According to Otis Williams, Paul had expressed suicidal thoughts to him and Melvin Franklin months before his death. Not everyone believed that Paul Williams' death was a suicide, however. Unexplained circumstances surrounding his death caused his family to suspect some kind of foul play, though nothing was ever remotely proven. The 3 issues are laid out. First, Williams was shot on the left side of his head, but his gun was found in his right hand. In order to have shot himself, Williams would have had to angle his gun in an impractical manner. Second, a bottle found by his left had shattered, as if he had dropped it. Third, the gun had been fired twice, but only one bullet was lodged inside Williams. So the official story remains official, albeit with questions unanswered. And for David Ruffin, one of the biggest issues was his growing drug addiction. Ruffin started using cocaine in the 1960s, but by the end of the decade, his drug habit became a serious problem. His friend Linster Butch Merle remembered how bad things got, saying, "He was getting so high. The man was a walking skeleton." Ruffin's drug use caused him to miss rehearsals and performances, which worried the other members of the Temptations. Ruffin's troubles with drugs and his behavior caused a lot of problems for the group, and eventually they made the tough decision to move on without him. After leaving Motown, Ruffin moved on to Warner Brothers Records. He released 2 albums, So Soon We Change and Gentleman Ruffin. Later, he teamed up with his old friend Eddie Kendricks, and the two worked together on some music. But sadly, Ruffin's life ended too soon. On June 1st, 1991, he passed away from a drug overdose. He collapsed at a crack house in West Philadelphia, where he had been with his friend Donald Brown. In the book Temptations, Otis Williams shared his memory of seeing Ruffin for the last time. It was just a few months before Ruffin died. Otis remembered that Ruffin didn't look like the same person he once knew. The drugs had taken a toll on his health, and he looked very weak. Otis knew right then that Ruffin's time was running out. It was a sad end for a man with so much talent. These losses reminded everyone that behind the fame were real people with real struggles. Even with the ups and downs, the Temptation story reminds us that music has the power to heal, inspire, and connect people. Eddie Kendricks and the group gave us more than just hit records. They showed us the beauty of human spirit and creativity. Their legacy lives on in every note and lyric, proving that their music will never fade. As we remember Eddie and the other members who have passed, we celebrate their gift to the world. Timeless songs and the message that music can transform our lives. That's it for today. Have an amazing day, and see you all next time.